Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Quranic Connection TV with your host Abdul Shahid, and in today's daily Quran challenge we're going to learn how to become from the friends of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur walladhina kafaru awliya'uhum at-taghut يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون.
الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجونهم من الظلمات إلى النور. Allah is the guardian, the protector of those who believe. Allah says that Allah is the guardian and protector of those who believe, meaning that Allah is the one who's looking out for you. Allah is the one who's gonna protect you. What does Allah do? يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ. Allah takes you out of darkness and brings you into the light. Now here in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, calls himself the guardian of the believer. Allah says, puts himself in the position of ownership of your situation. And the condition of that is that you believe. That's the number one thing. If you believe, and belief is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, amanu. Amanu is a verb, it's a doing word, it's an action word. So belief isn't just uttering the words. Belief is taking action, like following the commands of Allah, following the rules of Allah, basically. So if you follow the commands of Allah, you believe in your speech, your actions, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He is a guardian over you. Now you have to understand, you and I, we have guardians, we have parents. Right? What's the job of the parent? The job of the parent is that when the child doesn't understand anything, the parent looks out for them. Like when the child doesn't understand what to do, the parent tells them what to do. So Allah commands us with what to do because we don't understand everything. And sometimes we understand, other times we don't understand. Just like a child understands sometimes, other times they don't. And when they don't understand, they always say why. Why? We know this because our children, they do this, right? Like why this and why that? Like we say the same, and that's okay. But the thing is, whether you understand or you don't, you obey the commands of Allah because Allah is looking out for the child's interest, looking out for your interests. So the guardian is the one that tells the child, don't eat this. Don't eat this because it is bad for you. It's going to hurt you. It's going to be harmful for you, or it's going to be harmful for those around you. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, don't eat the haram food. Haram, why? Because it's bad for you. It's bad for society. Don't drink haram fluids. It's bad for you. It's bad for society. Alcohol. Don't intoxicate yourself with drugs. It's bad for you. It's bad for society. So just like the parent is looking after the individual, the parent's responsibility is not just that one child, but to make sure that all the children are doing okay. So just like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it takes that ownership of our situation, that when we don't understand, that Allah will guide us. And how will Allah guide us? Through the Quran and the Sunnah, because this is the revelation of Allah that has been sent to guide us. So then the parent says to the child, don't touch the stove, don't go towards the fire. And so we say to the children, don't do this, don't do that, don't go and touch the stove because you're going to burn. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't take this route because this route will take you to the fire. Allah knows where it's going because Allah is the creator of all of this. So Allah knows, and Allah is warning you. So Allah is giving you information so you know how to plan out your route, what actions to take, what actions not to take, what route to take in life and what route not to take in life, because this route will take you to the fire and this route will take you to paradise. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is informing us. It's not that Allah has left us blind without seeing anything. Allah says, يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. Allah takes them out, you and I, Allah takes us out of the darknesses. This is a plural, dhulumat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, Allah takes us out of the darknesses. Why? Because all of the different paths that lead to a different direction, lead to something which is usually against our interests. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, takes you out from all of the darknesses and takes you towards one good, because the path to Jannah is one. The path to Jannah is clear. Allah calls it a nur because it is lit up, it is clear, it's manifest. You're not going to misunderstand whether it's good or bad. The path to Jannah is absolutely clear. It's as though we're walking at night down a road which is lit up completely with street lamps. Like, it is lit up, you can see every spot, you know where you're treading, you know which way you should go, which way you shouldn't go. Like, as for the dhulumat, all the darkness around you, like, you can take those paths, but you can't see where you're going. It's as though you are blind. Like, it's as though you are blind and you can't see, and you could step into a problem that will affect you physically, mentally, and ultimately in the end it will take you somewhere where you don't want to be. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, like, describing the path to Jannah as the path of light, describing the path of light. And as for the darknesses, these are the paths that lead to the hellfire, because ultimately, like, they are in the disobedience of Allah. All of the commands of Allah, they're here to help us to take that path. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَوْلِيَاؤُهُمُ الطَّاغُوتُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say that as for those who disbelieve, as for those who disobey, those who turn away and reject the commands of Allah, those who reject the connection of Allah, those who reject Allah, like, who are these people? They're protectors, they're guardians. Allah says their guardians, awliya'uhum at-taghut, their guardians are the oppressors. Taghut, it comes from the root word tagha. Tagha means to oppress, to dominate. Now, this is the people, the taghut. They are people who will take you out. Allah says yukhrijunahum min an-nuri ila dhulumat, like, takes you out of the light of guidance and puts you into the darkness of misguidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equates darkness, dhulumat, with misguidance, and ultimately Allah says that they will take you out of the path of guidance. They will take you out of a clear path where you can see where you're going, where you're not blind, you understand. Because Allah doesn't expect you not to understand. Allah expects you to use your intellect to understand what you're doing and to take action. That's when you know what you're doing. You're not doing it blind. As for those who are taking the path of misguidance, or the paths of misguidance, they are people who are blind. They can't see what they're doing. And the people that are the guardian over them, like, what happens to the orphan who lives in the streets, like, doesn't have a home, and comes into contact with gangs, and they live with gangs, and the leader of that gang is what? The leader of that gang is an oppressor. Like, he uses the people in that gang to serve his interest. Like, he takes from their rights to serve his interests. And so what does he do? He takes from them, he dominates them, he oppresses them, and they don't know, but what they do in following his commands, they may feel the short-term excitement or the entertainment or the benefit or the wealth or whatever it is that they gain, but ultimately in the long term they are the ones being oppressed. They lose, and the one who gains is the taghut. Right? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the one who oppresses. Allah says, like, if you are not under the guardianship of Allah, then you are going to be under the guardianship of the oppressors, of the tyrants. And the tyrants don't have your interest. They don't have your interest at heart. They're not looking out for you. They're not like the parent who looks after the child and makes sure the child is doing well. They will tell you, eat what you like. It doesn't matter if it harms you. As long as I profit, eat what you like. Like, they will tell you, like, take this path, like, do the haram stuff, but I'm the one that benefits. Like, they will tell you things that you want to hear that will short-term, like, fulfill some of those desires that you have, the base desires that you have. They will tell you, do those things. And ultimately those routes, all of them lead astray. All of them lead you away from Allah. And ultimately, if you are led away from Allah, you are led away from the guardianship of Allah. And if Allah is not the one who's guiding you and watching over you and looking after you, then you're being guided and watched over and looked after, or more to the point, exploited by those oppressors, the taghut that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about. So the thing is, like, you can be in either camp. Like, be under the guardianship of Allah, be the friend of Allah. Wali, we understand this linguistically to also mean, like, guardian, friend, like companion. Here, the awliya of Allah, the people, when they talk about the awliya of Allah, they're talking about the friends of Allah. But you can't become from that group of people unless you are following the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent you. And the guidance is clear. So if there's something unclear about it, like, you have to stay away from it. The guidance is clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, describing the guidance, this is the path of nur. Nur is something which is lit up, is light. And in the light, you and I, we can see. In the darkness, you're blind, you can't see. You're trying to feel around, find your way around. right? As for the light, you don't have to feel around and try and find your way around. You can see with absolute clarity the right way to go. And so here, like, there's a very important lesson to learn. The path of Allah is a very clear path. You can see it clearly. Sometimes you understand it, sometimes you don't understand it. But if you follow the path of Allah, then you're safe. If you don't follow the path of Allah and you go for the things you're unsure about, like then you can guarantee that the oppressors, they will take advantage of you and they will use you and exploit you, and ultimately, like, you will be taking yourself away from the protection of Allah. So if we want to remain in the protection of Allah, remain in the nur, remain in the clear, evident path. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us lots of ways to do this. But inshallah ta'ala, we're going to talk about this in other sessions. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.